What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Cohn and Krueger show. This is our instant reaction to practice today. Both of us were there. That's why we did this. I mean, normally we go earlier in the day, but we were both at practice. We were both watching it. This was it was nice to have Larry there. Larry knows what he's doing. Larry's a scout. So I'm asking Larry, what is your first impression of what you saw from Trey Lance?
Thought he looked good. It was hot, and I thought he looked. I thought, like, if I'm not there every single day. I bet you, if you asked Trey, he would say that he felt kind of sluggish. He seemed like he was kind of dragging himself through the practice and kind of low energy, but he looked good. I mean, he was pretty much on target. There were a couple that were off target, but for the most part, he looked pretty good. I didn't notice any changes at all in his release or his footwork or his mechanics, though he did seem like he had a nice little rhythm going. I will say this, I'm not impressed by the other quarterbacks they have. I mean, there's nobody else who's throwing the football besides Trey that makes you go, that's interesting. I mean, it's like everybody else didn't look that great, but I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they see in Nate Sudfeld, but that's neither here nor there. With Lance, I would give him a B through the first two practices. I mean, he's completing most of his passes. He's being very smart. He hasn't thrown anything that was even close to intercepted, but he hasn't really had any big plays. And I feel like today, the theme of the day, I don't know if you saw it the same way, was play action shot plays. They were trying to take shots. They were practicing the different like rollouts and play action movements, and he didn't hit any of them. Now he checked down, but he couldn't get that part going. I guess it'll come. It's June. What I did like about Trey Lance, and it's been the last two practices, the throws over the middle. The throw to Dwelley today, over the middle. He likes the tight end seam throw between the safeties. He threw that one to Kittle against the Texans, and he hit it last week. He hit it this week. He's very confident throwing that pass, and I'm surprised because last year in training camp, he was sailing the passes over the middle. So he's seemed to improve in that way.
The ball definitely was lower. I didn't see the sail. Right. I thought it was we still saw some high-speed wobbles, yes, which always make you a little nervous because that's a tough ball to catch. Yep. But overall, I mean, there was no Debo. There was no Kittle. Right. I thought he looked pretty. I mean, to me, Ayuk doesn't look like he's in training camp shape yet. He looks like he's in off-season shape.
Agreed.
And I expect him to look faster and leaner and quicker this summer than he looked today.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but that kind of stands out. I have a little stat. We're going to get to him in a minute, but Trey Lance was 8 of 10 when not targeting Brandon Ayuk today. He was 1 of 4 when targeting Ayuk. So something's off with that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But again, I think Ayuk I'd like him to be a little more aggressive. I think he knows all eyes are on him. He knows that everyone's going to be reporting his completion percentage at the end of every practice, and I think he's being a little conservative. I'd like to see him take some shots, make some big plays. He hasn't done it yet. But he's had some nice throws. The one to Ayuk across the field to the left, the one to Dwelley up the seam, those were nice. Those were the two standouts today. Otherwise, kind of safe.
I thought he threw a nice pass to on the sideline to Tay Martin, who kind of plucked it with his hands and looked really quick and showed some ball skills. That was one that I saw. I mean, Trey looked okay to me. I'm more about, are you in shape? Right. And then you can look good. I don't know that I look at any of these mini camp practices as you can look bad unless you're really off target, you're dropping passes, you're fumbling the football, you're horribly out of shape. I didn't see anybody in that category, but he looked good, but he looked a little lethargic. It was hot out there today, I'll say that.
I'd like to see him look a little better. He looks better than Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion, but that's not ultimately the bar. People are going to be comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. The Niners gave up 3 first-round picks for this guy and sat him a year. For example, he had Marcus Johnson open deep. I thought Johnson had at least a step on Ambry Thomas. Had Lance led Johnson to the middle of the field and thrown it out in front, I think it's a touchdown. Instead, it was kind of behind Johnson and a little bit underthrown, and it allowed Ambry Thomas to break it up. And it's not a terrible throw, but I mean, that's why you're transitioning from Jimmy to Trey to hit something like that. And I know it's a low percentage throw, but I don't know. I'd like to see him hit those eventually.
I would be more concerned, Grant, if Marcus was on the team last year and they were because he wasn't on the team last year. And so and
I don't know who that is.
Well, and he actually, it's funny. He's actually stood out to me. He wore number 6, I think, in practice, and he actually stood out to me. He looks like he can get separation. He looks like a deep threat. I would not be surprised if Marcus Johnson is contending for a deep threat spot on this roster. We didn't see Danny Gray today, but I kind of like Johnson, the fact that he got separation. But I would just chalk that up to, seriously, the number of reps that Trey and Marcus have together has got to be very minimal.
Like 2. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk connection. They're close. They work out together in the offseason. They had a good game together against Houston. I think a lot of people thought the reason Ayuk was sort of had like a step back, not really a sophomore slump, but a step back as a sophomore, was Jimmy's fault. That they just didn't really have a connection. Once Trey comes in, Ayuk's going off. And now with Debo out, I was sort of expecting Ayuk to really be the focal point of these practices. And so far, he's caught 3 passes in 2 practices from Lance, which is surprising. He got 4 targets today, caught 1 of them. And there was another, I thought the first play in 11 on 11s was basically a play action shot to Ayuk, and Trey Lance didn't want it and checked it down. Maybe he was wrong. But for whatever reason, they're not on the same page yet. What do you see from Ayuk?
To me, he just looks like a guy who, well, first of all, it's always hard to gauge because some guys wear very little clothes. They wear just their jersey and everything's real tight. Other guys baggy everything up. And he kind of had a lot of clothes on today, looking to maybe break a sweat. Yeah. Usually that's a message. The guys are trying to sweat off a few extra pounds or they're trying to get in better shape. And sometimes in hot weather, they'll bulk up so they sweat. So they work up that much more of a sweat. That's what it looked like to me. But I don't really have any concern about Ayuk other than, does he have a drive to be great, or is he just content to be pretty good? Because he's got he's got enough talent, Grant, where if he just wants to coast, he can be pretty good just on the talent he has. But if he has that drive to be great, then we're going to see him get better. And the players that have a drive to be great, I'll give you one we saw today, Tylenoa Hafunga. He's got a drive to be great. So every time you see Hafunga, he's better. He was better in November than he was in October. He was better in the playoffs than he was in November. He looked better today than he did in the playoffs. He's just one of those guys that's going to continue to get better. So that's what separates the good from the great. I don't know if Ayuk's going to be great. Right now, he looks like a guy with a ton of talent who's got a good rapport with Trey, but he's also kind of, I think, underachieved to this point in his career.
I don't know if he has the drive. And I'm not saying he does it. All I'm saying is he hasn't proven it yet. And I know what it looks like. Because you know who has it? Debo. I saw it. Debo had it last year. That's what it looks like. Debo, when he's engaged, which was last year and maybe this year, is one of the most impressive competitors I've ever seen. He is a Jerry Rice, Stephen Curry level competitor. He's amazing. I don't see that from Brandon Ayuk. Like today, Debo Samuel's the kind of guy that anytime he's on the field, practice or whatever, he needs to prove he's the best player out there. Brandon isn't like that. Brandon was just one of the guys today, and he should be the guy in these practices. He should be the guy, and he wasn't today. He wasn't last week. And what I see from him, it's not that he doesn't. One, I don't think he's the competitor that Debo is, and 2, he works hard, but his body totally changed from year 1 to year 2. He was leaner as a rookie. Now he's really muscle bound. He's very strong. He clearly lifts a lot of weights, but I don't think it's made him faster. I don't think it's made him more explosive. I think it's taken some quick twitch away. And I think he might want to consider losing 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. That's what I would think. But I don't know.
I would just put it in the category of I always feel like don't make negative impact in as far as minicamp, because you know what, minicamp, there's not a game for a long time, and some guys walk around ready to play, some guys get ready to play. Does it matter week 1 if you got ready to play or if you were ready to play all year? It does not. So I give these guys a huge wide berth because I thought we saw him I thought he really did improve a ton at the end of last year. And I believe that him and Trey have a good chemistry, and I believe they're doing the reps. So I'll say this. I expect to see an explosive, lean, mean, dominating type receiver from Brandon Ayuk in July. And
I agree.
If we don't see it then I'll concern myself. I'm not going to get too distressed with May, guys running around.
You're right. I just wanted to say I expected to see it now.
Yeah,
we're not seeing it now. But as you pointed out, it's okay. We'd like to see it in July and August. And again, maybe Brandon gets there by December, January. But come on, man. This is year 3.
This is his year. This is his year.
You have an opportunity to get a crazy contract in like 12 months or less. So come on, man. These practices matter. They do.
And and believe me, they've got a deep receiver group this year. Ray McLeod, I think, is going to catch balls. Yeah. Danny Gray is going to make this team. He's a vertical threat. I was very impressed today with big play Tay Martin, who, he's lean, but he doesn't run a great 40 times. So you question some of the deep speed. But man, as far as just quickness in and out of breaks and pluck with your hands and catch it in the crowd, and he looked good. His movements were precise. He came down with a couple different balls in a crowd. He wore 83 today. I really like what I saw to Tay Martin.
Let's talk about the Niners. Speaking of Tay Martin, let's talk about the Niners' depth at wide receiver. It seems like it's much better than last year. I mean, last year they were trying to sell us the Mohamed Sanu rebirth. I mean, that's over.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they got guys this year. I mean, obviously, Debo and Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, those guys are firmly established. And then you mentioned Marcus Johnson. I think Marcus Johnson got separation. He looked really good today. Ray McLeod, the fumbles are a concern for me, Grant, because I think he had 6, and that's way too many. I mean, if he has 3 next year, people are going to be, hooting and hollering about that. And he had 6 this last year. So that's a concern. But man, he's got a nice catch radius. He does,
right?
Yeah, he'll go for the ball high, low. I like that. I like that.
Good.
Especially in the middle of the field. He's creative. He's a little tougher than you would think somebody with his dimensions would be.
I agree.
He's fun. So, I mean, you've added him to the mix. Now you get Danny Gray. He can run off the coverage. Marcus Johnson can run. Keyshawn Johnson, the former Arizona Cardinal, I thought did some good things today. And then you got Tay Martin and you got Taysir Mack, who was really good for Pickett at Pitt. So they got, only 5 receivers typically make the team, maybe 6, and they got way more than that. So I think they're sitting in a nice spot with the receivers. They're gonna have great competition in July.
Agree. And Debo's not even there. What's funny about the wide receivers through 2 practices in front of the media, in my opinion, is that the 2 least impressive receivers so far have been the 2 starters, Ayuk and Jennings. Jennings had no catches today. Ayuk had 1. Jennings was complaining. You're not supposed to say what they said, but he ran deep once and against Jimmy and felt he should have got the target. And he yelled about it and stomped about it, and Jimmy laughed in his face. But Jennings got no targets today. So at least from Trey's perspective, Ayuk and Jennings aren't winning their. I mean, Jennings isn't winning his matchup very much against the starters. Ayuk, he got 4 targets. He just, I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I'll tell you what my read on that is that you're in mini camp in May.
Yeah.
Training camp's on in the NFL. I mean, it's fast paced and it's go time, and you're going to be playing games soon, and there's no time to mess around. Yep. So when you get to May, you take inventory. And so you know what you got in Juwan. You know what you got in Ayuk. You know what you got in Kittle. You know what you got in Debo. So I don't even care if those guys suit up, and they don't either. And then if they do anything, that's gravy. You know what they are. They've proven what they are. You got to find out about Taysir Mack. You got to find out about Danny Gray, who didn't practice today, by the way. You got to find out about Tay Martin. You got to find out if any of these guys, Ray McLeod's going to be just a special teamer. Is he going to help you from scrimmage? So to me, I think the minicamp is almost the perfect time to kind of take inventory, force feed your younger talent out there into reps. And I don't even care if I'm Juwan Jennings. He made that catch on the deep out, those 2 big deep out catches in the playoffs. That tells me everything I need to know. He can run that pattern under pressure and catch it, cold weather or not. I got to see other guys. I think that's their approach.
Good point. Double B Studio says, looks like Kyle toned down OTAs to avoid injuries and maybe instructed players to be careful. I don't know, just a guess. Last year was more intense, right? Yeah, last year there was a bunch of injuries and they had to actually cancel minicamp. Last week it was kind of a slower practice, but today was pretty standard. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, the one thing that you'll hear across the league is stay up, stay up, stay up. They instruct the players to stay up. Try to play the game on your feet, especially down the field, so you don't get tangled. That's how guys, tear stuff up.
All right, so we've been talking about the Niners' improved depth at wide receiver. That being said, through 2 practices in front of the media, I feel like the secondary's gotten the best of the receiving core. And it's no coincidence because the Niners' defensive backs have much more depth there than the past, wouldn't you say?
This is going to go from a weakness to a strength.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first primary takeaway today, is that this is now going to be a strength. Jimmy Ward is in awesome shape. Jimmy Ward looked incredible today. I mean,
that
seriously.
Break up today on Tyler Croft was,
and just he's in shape. I mean, he is really in shape.
Yes.
Talk about your guy who's like ready to roll right now. He looks like he can play Sunday. Yes. And then Hafunga just gets better, faster, more sudden, smarter, more instinct. I mean, he's a really good football player who's just getting better and better and better. So we looked at strong safety, and safety is a weakness. That may be the strength of the defense. I was thinking
Hafunga would be a downgrade from Tart. I don't know about that. I don't think so.
Tart's a bigger, stronger, faster body. Yes. But I mean, Hafunga is I think he's a Pro Bowl caliber safety if he can get a step quicker. And that's what an NFL offseason will do. He even talked about it at the podium in the press room, how, when you know the game better and you've done all the mental reps, you play faster. When you play faster, you might as well be faster. So I thought that was really interesting. So you got him at strong, you got Jimmy at free, and then you're deep as heck on the corner. And the 2 guys that I thought showed to me were Womack and Quantrez Knight. Okay. Not from the standpoint of they actually made plays, but just Womack walks around with just a cocky swagger. And that's what a top flight corner does in the NFL. They have a look. They got a swagger. They walk with a confidence. They move with confidence. And Quantrez Knight is the same thing. Those 2 guys are both going to make the team, and they both have a lot of swagger, man. I like both those guys this year.
Hold on. Let's talk about the outside corner spot. I mean, the Niners are deeper at cornerback outside.
Yeah.
They've been a long time. Like, Charvarius Ward didn't even practice today.
Right.
Ambry Thomas filled in and was money. He was terrific. He's a starting caliber corner. The Niners have him on their bench. I don't know what to do with him. Mosley's good.
Mosley's really good.
Good. Verrett's on the team. You know what I mean? He could come back and be the best player that they have.
Verrett's really, really good. He's just glass. He's always hurt. But when he's out there, I mean, he's not just good. He's like Pro Bowl good.
That's interesting how good he is the nickel spot. They got Denard, who was a first-round pick.
They like Denard,
him, 30 years old. If not him, I wouldn't be surprised if Quantrez Knight is the next guy up. Because I don't know if they look at Lenore or Womack as being quite big enough to be in the slot full-time. I don't know.
Womack is small. He's definitely small.
Yes.
But if you're looking for a guy who shows man-to-man coverage, athleticism, and traits, wow. You can see it. I can see just watching him move around out there. I can see why the scout was banging the table for him, because in a lot of ways he's the quintessential Pro Bowl. I mean, the quintessential cornerback body. He's like 5'9", 5'10", but he's just strong and fast, and he plays with a lot. He's got a little bounce. He's got a lot of bounce.
Who he's built like?
Who's that?
He's built like Jason Verrett.
Yeah, maybe a little thicker. Thicker.
Yeah, longer arm.
Hugely, both those guys. I like, the DBs. You got to hear your DBs. You got to feel their vibe. And to me, Knight's got a real confident vibe about him, and so does Womack. And I thought the Penn State kid made a couple decent plays. Yeah, Tariq Castro Fields. He's taking a backseat to nobody. I mean, he's 6'1", 6'2", he runs in the high 4.3s. I mean, he's true. He looks very comfortable.
It's true. One thing I want to point out real quick: Emmanuel Mosley. Some people expect him to get some looks at nickelback. Hasn't so far.
No,
purely outside. So I don't know if they're looking out in that direction.
That's a tough, and you think you would think that would be a somewhat easy transition for a veteran player, but you know what? They're totally different positions. they're totally different skill sets. I mean, it's, I'll be very interested to see how that nickel shakes out, because trying to defend the slot receiver, the two-way break as opposed to playing outside. Mosley has played and looks comfortable outside. I don't know how he'll look inside.
Let's focus on Tylenoa Hafunga for a minute. I know we talked about him before, but Tylenoa Hafunga is sort of an early standout at these OTAs. I mean, his body looks different than last year, in my opinion. He looks bigger, stronger, faster. And then the praise he gets from coaches is like, compared to what people say about Trey Lance, it's like better. I mean, he got more snaps last year than Trey Lance. He seems to just really have the full confidence of the coaching staff. And then when you step back and think about it, like Troy Polamalu has fully endorsed him. John Lynch is two of the greatest safeties of my childhood think that Tylenoa Hafunga is the truth. That's amazing to me. What do you think of this fifth round pick?
I think he should have gone in the second round. I mean, he was the defensive player of the year in the conference.
Yeah.
Why
did he drop? Because he ran a 4.6?
I think so. Excuse me. I think that the 40 time, they didn't think he had deep speed. They didn't think he could hold up. But then we saw it in the Green Bay game when Aaron Rodgers challenged him down the field. He was stride for stride. Now, I still think that's how you beat him, is you make him play coverage down the field. But he, as I said, I mean, he gets better and smarter and more comfortable. And, you got D'Amico speaking in total glowing terms, calling him Huff. And it's pretty clear that they have great respect for this player. And then he has great respect for Jimmy and for Tavon Wilson and Tart. He mentioned those guys today, how they kind of coached him up last year. And so, I think Hafunga, it's funny. Everybody was thinking of Hafunga as a special teamer. And then it's like, well, maybe he's good enough to play. Well, wait a second. He might just be better than good enough to play. He might be your best. Might wind up being their best defensive back. And then that's amazing. But if he continues the curve that he's on, and based on his tape at SC, I mean, he was a great college football player. And now he's finding a way to become a great NFL player.
What's interesting about him to me is like, he's so opposite from Tart. And Tart, to me, was like a bigger Jimmy Ward. They had the same exact strengths and weaknesses. He wasn't as good as Jimmy Ward. But if you'd like to have a complementary duo, and if Ward is going to be the guy who's great in man-to-man coverage and a great tackler but doesn't have a lot of plays on the ball, you'd like to have a playmaker next to him. And he hasn't proven that he is one yet. But I expect that. If he's going to be this instinctual, I expect a lot of pass breakups and interceptions. I'd like to see that. He hasn't done it yet in practice, but at the same time, he hasn't been giving up big plays either. So far, so good. That's what I'm looking for from him.
They're going to challenge Hafunga deep. That's going to be the book on him. And so they're going to try to find ways to scheme the strong safety, to have to cover the deep middle. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out how he is in coverage. But I'll say this. I mean, he's going to do all the mental reps. So you're not going to fool him. You're not going to get up on the line of scrimmage. He's going to be like, I'm seeing something I haven't seen before. He's going to do all the mental reps. And then he's playing fast. I mean, this guy's playing fast. His pre-snap recognition it's keen, man. He's like a coach on the field. So I'm really impressed by Hafunga. I liked him last year and then loved him towards the end of the year, but he looks quite a bit better right now than he did even at the end of the year.
Is he the safety version of Chris Borland?
It's funny. He reminds me a little bit of Polamalu from the standpoint of his instincts. He's got great instincts, but he's not the blitzer that Polamalu was. He's just a really smart player.
You see why I would bring up Borland, right? Because Borland was really productive despite being quote unquote slow.
Yeah, I mean, Borland had even bigger physical deficiencies than Hafunga.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, as far as, despite physical deficiencies, they're at the ball making plays over and over and over again. And you're sitting there going at the end of the game, wow, look at the tackles, look at the production. Yeah.
Not bad for a mid-round pick. Yeah,
exactly. Hafunga to me is the brightest spot of the day today, because he might not just be suitable. He might actually make that secondary a real strength.
True. What's interesting about Hafunga and the Niners defense is that he might be the slowest person in their back seven. The Niners have really fast linebackers, not just the starters, the backups too. There was a play today that stood out. The Niners tried to do a play action shot to Ayuk running like a deep over route. They got him matched up man to man on some linebacker named Curtis Robinson, who wears 59, and that dude ran stride for stride with Ayuk. I was like, I don't know who you are, but that was phenomenal.
A Stanford guy.
There you go. Dude could run. Anyway, what do you see for
a special teamer? Well, you know what they have is who's picking their linebackers? Is it D'Amico? Is it Scouts?
Johnny Holland. I mean, they got.
I don't know who's. They got a great eye for it. I mean, look what they got right now. They've got Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair. All three of those guys are awesome. Yep. I mean, those are three down great players. I mean, you can't. It's amazing how good those three guys are. Yep. But now I'm watching today, Marcelino McCrary Ball from Indiana. He goes about 215 pounds, but he's instinctive, plays really fast. And then they've got a 4.45 linebacker in camp from San Diego State who looks raw, but like looks like as fast a linebacker as you've ever seen. I mean, you're sitting there watching this guy. You're like, wow, this guy's 225 pounds and he's moving around like a DB. So, they've got a lot of speed there. They really do. They're going to either wind up cutting somebody that starts for somebody else, or they're going to wind up trading like they did last year. They traded that linebacker to Denver for a day 3 pick. I can see them trading a linebacker at the cut down if everybody stays healthy. They got too many NFL caliber backers for the roster spots.
Good call. I mean, it seems like every year there's a couple of roster bubble linebackers in the Niners that other teams want, just because the Niners developed them, and they're right. Yes.
Flanagan, Foles, or somebody's going to want one of these guys because they're all pretty good.
Now, the one thing that surprised me is the Niners always get it right with linebackers, but they actually signed one this offseason, Oren Burks.
Yeah, he was out there today.
He got smoked today. I don't know. It was just one play, but he got basically singled up on JaMychal Hasty. And Hasty kind of faked like he was going to run a quick out route to the flat and took it upfield like a wheel route and just destroyed Oren Burks. I don't know. I thought I was a little disappointed. I was like, come on.
There were a couple other plays where Burks, jumped right into the right spot and then would have detonated on somebody in the backfield, but because it's mini camp, he jumped there, tapped him on the helmet, and then olayed him. But that's an interesting one too, because I didn't understand why they went with that route, to be honest, because they're so deep at linebacker and they're so good at finding guys. But obviously they feel like this guy's a special teamer who's going to contribute. I thought he showed a couple times in plays. I thought George Odom showed on a couple plays today. So both those guys, they were both kind of curious pickups, but we'll see this summer how it all shakes out and how they fit in.
All right. So I've been talking about the Niners undrafted free agent running back Jordan Mason. I'm not a great judge of running backs in non-contact practice, but I like watching him play. He seems really quick and quite explosive. After practice, I went up to Larry and I said, "What'd you think?" And one of the first things you said was Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
What do you see?
He looks great. I mean, well, he's 225 pounds. He's got this really, really good first and second step quickness. So he's like, I don't know what his 40 time was, but he's quick. I bet you he had a great 10-yard split because he is quick. I mean, it's like he's full speed, boom. And then he's, as I said, he's between 225 and 230, but it's kind of compact and he's got stop and start ability, and he's got seems like plenty's fast enough to get to the edge, and he's obviously big enough to counter back inside. I mean, they got a really good room of running backs, and they got a ton of backs. I can see why they allowed Raheem Mostert to get out of there, because there's no end to the number of quality backs they have. I mean, they got a lot of guys, and this guy's really interesting. I mean, he's gonna be a guy that's gonna be really interesting in the preseason.
I keep comparing him to Ty Davis Price because, I mean, they're both rookies and they're both about the same size. They're both going to be short yardage, not specialists, but guys who excel in short yardage and do more, I would think. And again, it's hard to judge running backs when there's no tackling, but in this setting, when there's no tackling and you're just sort of looking at agility and explosion, Mason's more impressive. Now, Ty Davis Price didn't practice today, but I feel like what he contributes to this team, he's not going to be able to really show in practice. Mason can. He's a good receiver. There was a run today. It was an outside zone run to the left. Someone got beat immediately. He had a guy in his face. He cut back real quick and cut back behind the A gap. I mean, he had the whole offense oohing and eyeing. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Right?
I think they thought he was going. It looked like going to the left, and he cut it back and went right. And everybody kind of gave the big ooh. Like,
that's always good. That's a good response to get when you're an undrafted rookie.
Oh, no question. I mean, they're stacked at running back. Yeah. I mean, this guy looks really, really good. And they've got Hasty, and they've got Jeff Wilson, and they've got Trey Sermon, and Elijah Mitchell, and TDP, and they got guys. They got lots of guys at running back. So I was hoping to see a little bit more explosiveness from Trey Sermon. I didn't see that today. He looked like very much like the guy we saw last year. But
he got a lot of touches today, right?
Because he did get a lot of touches.
No tight of his price, yeah.
And it's hard to gauge because everybody's, as I said, trying to stay up, and he's got nifty feet, and he's kind of picking and sliding through the holes. So it's hard to know if guys could tackle him and then choosing not to. But I was hoping to see just a little bit more speed and explosiveness than what we saw last year. And I saw kind of the same guy I saw last year.
Also, there was one play. Lance was under center. They tossed it to Sermon to the right, and he just couldn't do anything. I mean, there was no tackling, and he couldn't even turn the corner. He just stopped. To me, he just doesn't have that explosion. Maybe he'll be effective on the zone read between the tackles, but he's not gonna be getting to the edge, which is a problem because the Niners. It's not a problem. It's just unfortunate because the Niners' best run blocker is Kittle on the edge. If you're fast, it's like a guaranteed 7 yards. Ask Raheem Mostert. So, yeah, I don't think Sermon's going to be able to take advantage of that.
He doesn't seem like he can get the edge, but he does seem like he maybe have a role in this offense. Between him and Wilson and Mason, they may have, their pick there of backs they want to finish with. Maybe they've got some guys who are 220 who they can say, you know what, let's finish between the tackles. Let's run wide, but now it's the fourth quarter. Let's take it up in there with some of these bigger backs. So we'll see. Once again, running back's another position. It's so instinctive, and it's such a full speed position. Like, you can't really evaluate it unless you're watching football at full speed. Yep. That you don't want to make any real concrete negative evaluations on backs unless they're like 20 pounds overweight.
Right.
And none of those guys were.
One thing I do want to say, though, is I really like Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah.
And he was not healthy last year, but he's healthy now. And in 2020, he was a really good player. He led the team in touchdowns. It feels like a long time ago, but go back and watch his game in New England from 2020. He was the best player in their offense. He ran over 3 touchdowns in that game. If he's back to the player he was 2 years ago, it's funny. They bring in all these running backs. The top 2 guys will be him and Elijah Mitchell. Those guys are good. Those guys are good, and they have depth. Yeah,
they got depth, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Jeff Wilson is he's tough. I mean, he is really tough. I mean, this guy. They say he gets into a dark place before the games, and then he's really, really focused. I thought it was interesting hearing him talk about after practice about what he sees and his comeback, but he's he's not great. Like, if you watched him, you would say he's not great at anything, but then when you start to watch him more, what he is dependable. He doesn't cough it up. He is not going to cough it up.
He runs so hard. He's a good receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, really, him and Elijah Mitchell are two of the hardest running backs in the league. Him and Elijah Mitchell run hard.
And they don't cough it up. I mean, these guys. I mean, we could talk about that sometime about the technique involved with not fumbling. It's not just as simple as, hey, I've got strong hands. It's like it's how you hold the football, your pressure points, and this and that. Tom Rathman one time gave me a whole 5-minute breakdown on how to hold the football and why he never fumbled. And so Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell have listened to their coaches because these guys don't cough it up. They do not.
Michael says, who's going to be battling for the right guard spot, and if Mac retires, does West have a legit shot winning the starting job given his years of experience at center? Right guard.
That's a tough one.
Brunskill, Jalen Moore. Those 2 guys seem they like Jalen Moore. Right guard, right tackle. He's going to be in the mix.
I'm gonna say now I was watching the O lineman today and I was trying to see just kind of if there was anybody that stood out, because you got a lot of raw players there. And Burford definitely stands out as a talent. I mean, big, long arms. You can see he's a prototype, but he may be a year away. I kind of think the guy who might be the right guard is Zakel, because there's some nastiness to Zakel, and you can see it out there. He's hitting people, it's mini camp and they're not going full boat, it's like, it's still, but he's just delivers, some real violent shots. I mean, this is to his other offensive line mates and drills. I mean, he's just very powerful. I could see him giving them some pop in the run game. I would not be surprised if Brunskill is your center, if Zakel was the right guard.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I can see it. I like it. All right, last topic. The backup tight end competition. Not the most exciting topic, but one that I'm very invested in, because I happen to think that Ross Dwelley is a Hall of Fame practice tight end. I mean, in practice, he's so good. And they keep trying to take his job, but you're going to have to earn it and take it from him in practice, and that's hard to do. Today, so they got Tyler Kroft, who has started a lot of games. Like, he's actually has a pedigree. And I don't know if you noticed, they threw him the ball up the seam. He didn't catch it. Jimmy Ward swatted it. 5 minutes later, they came back to Dwelley. He caught it right between Jimmy Ward and Tylenoa. I mean, I know there's a lot more to playing tight end than catching the ball. But how do you see this back? Where is Charlie Werner, by the way? Haven't seen him all offseason. No idea where he is.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what I saw from Werner as a run blocker. I mean, he doesn't move people in the run game, but he gets after it, man. He will really get after it, and he's like he's just tenacious. He will not let go once he latches on. But he doesn't move anybody in the run game. He doesn't blow anybody off the line. Dwelley doesn't either, but Dwelley, going back to San Diego days, I mean, he's got terrific ball skills, and he'll catch it in a crowd. His weakness is that he just gets absolutely dominated by defensive ends. So you're putting your quarterback in harm's way if you're asking Dwelley to protect the blind side, for your quarterback. But if you need someone to catch a 3rd and 6 pass with the game on the line, I'd feel comfortable going to Dwelley. He's got that good of hands.
What's kind of makes me laugh, and there's a lot of practices in OTAs. They only show that they only bring the media in once a week. But I track all this stuff. I've seen 2 practices, and in front of us, the player who has caught more passes from Trey Lance by far than anyone else, Ross Dwelley. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, oh, absolutely. One, because to catch the ball from Trey, you got to have good ball skills, because it's coming in hot and it's not necessarily the easiest ball to catch. Then, the guys in the middle of the field are going to be the guys that he sees, and those are going to be easier completions. And you can go late in the down in the middle of the field and still find a Dwelley. And then Dwelley's got great ball skills, so I'm sure there's some trust that's developed between him and Trey. So if I'm Trey and I got bodies flying around, I just got to find somebody, Dwelley, boom, because you got a belief that he'll hold on. So that makes sense to me that he would be the recipient of so many receptions from Trey. I'd like to see the 49ers. Well, they've practiced together for a long time. I'd like to see the Niners find a role for Dwelley in the offense. Not a big one, but in the red zone, I think there could be a 2 or 3 tight end package that could get him. Remember how they used to use Selleck, and there was a joke like Selleck time? Remember? Because you're not going to think about stopping Selleck, but when you're trying to stop everyone else and you forget about him, all of a sudden you got this guy getting big plays. Dwelley is so much better than Garrett Selleck was when it was Selleck time. I'd like to see Dwelley time.
Dwelley's way better receiver than Selleck.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's quite a bit better receiver than Werner, and he's a better receiver than, this kid Walston from Carolina. I'm eager to see what he looks like if he makes it to camp this summer.
Yes, Double B Studio says, I'm still not sold on quarterback runs up the middle. Too risky. I hope that Anthony Lynn doesn't get Lance hurt. Also, this year is Kittle's year. I have a feeling. I don't know about that. But the thing about Lynn, what's interesting, I was looking into his background. When he was in Buffalo, they were the number 1 rushing team in the league in yards and touchdowns. They averaged 5.7 yards per carry from the shotgun. That's amazing. with Tyrod Taylor and LaShawn McCoy. I think we're going to see the Niners become much more of a shotgun run-oriented team because they have a mobile quarterback, and Lynn has a background in that. So I'm curious to see what he can do with the guys he has.
Yeah. Well, especially because, as you said, when you have Trey, now those scrambles are going to count as runs. So you're going to see him get loose, I think, more than a couple times. I'd rather see his scrambles. I'd like to see at least a 2-to-1 ratio by the end of the year on Trey Lance scrambles to Trey Lance designed runs.
Agree. The design runs are like you only want to call maybe 1, maybe 2 a game, but when you call it, you're hoping it's a touchdown or a first down. I mean, you want to make it count. That's usually how the Seahawks did it with Russell Wilson throughout the years. Not a lot, but you got to account for it. And if you when you don't, it's the game deciding touchdown.
Right.
Yep.
And then I think Trey's going to be trustworthy with the ball too. So I think putting the ball in his hands in a key third down in the second half may be a great way to ice a few wins. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't think we're going to see the same quarterback power runs that we saw last year. I think that was partially because he had a broken finger.
Thank God. I mean, seriously, I looked at those runs in that Arizona game. When he scrambled, he took a hit on like a third of the runs. But when he was a design quarterback run, he took a hit every time. Yeah, so why would you give me the run that he's going to get a hit, hit every 3 runs over the run where he's going to get hit guaranteed at the end of it? And that's all I'm saying. Minimize the hits.
Agree. All right, that's the end of OTAs for this week. They're going to have another practice next Tuesday. Larry's going to be back soon doing a Niners post game. I'm going to be back soon with Jesse doing another show about the Niners. There's a lot going on YouTube tonight. Flip back and forth. Check out both. Have both Larry and me up on 2 different laptops at the same time if you really like us.
There you go.
If you really, that's what you would do. Thanks for watching.
Have a good one, man.
Oh, hold on. At the buzzer.
Oh, look at this.
Studio says, also, shout out to Draymond Green for telling Stephen A. that podcast is the new news. And this is the way Mandalorian thanks for the hard work y'all do. Mandalorian. Shout out Draymond Green. Yes.
Go Warriors. Go Warriors.
Yeah, good luck. Thanks, everyone.